Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Tangents. I am here once again with Julie Kallfelz. She's the director of the Northeast Tech Bridge. Welcome back to Tangents.
Thank you for having me.
So it seems like every so often we get together and we talk about a Tech Bridge event. And this year it's the BlueTIDE and it's happening at the end of the month. What's the date?
August 28th.
Okay, so what is BlueTIDE? What is the TIDE? If that's the acronym, what does the TIDE stand for?
Right, so TIDE stands for the Technology Innovation Demonstration Event, BlueTIDE.
So it is happening at 2 locations. And can you just kind of walk me through the genesis of this event, starting with the theme? Like, anytime you have an event, like what's the theme? So can you walk me through that?
Absolutely. So the theme always starts, as with everything with the Tech Bridge, with a Navy problem. What is one of the problems we want to slice off and really focus on? And this year in 2025, we focused on seabed warfare. So working closely with Mark Vaccaro, the SSTM for seabed warfare, and a number of other folks involved in the various components of seabed warfare, because it encompasses a lot. It encompasses seabed ISR, it encompasses cross-domain and resilient comms, it encompasses port and harbor security. So it encompasses a lot of themes under the heading of seabed warfare. So we took that collection of seabed warfare kind of subset topics and distilled them down to a distro A scenario that would allow industry to get engaged in helping us really peel the onion on a number of these technology challenges we have that support, for instance, fighting from the Mach. How do you get data from the seabed to the water column to the surface and then to your Maritime Operations Center, your Mach? So working with Mark Vaccaro and his team, we went through some iterations of what are some somewhat simplified distro A level problem sets or mission scenarios that encompass as many of those areas as we could. We took that through a bit of a refining iteration process, broke it down into several technology bins, and with that and an OV1, we went out to industry to say, here is a problem set the Navy is really working on, and we're interested to see what you have on the shelf, industry. What technologies do you have currently fairly mature? What do you have in your development pipeline? And so that kicked off a interaction with industry that was a publicly advertised prize challenge. In this case, we layered on a prize challenge to this whole thing where we said, come participate, industry, and if you are selected to the final event, there are cash prizes at each stage of the event. So it all starts with a Navy problem set. Mm-hmm. In this case, we took seabed warfare and some of its subcomponents, and that was the means by which we engaged industry in a Navy-relevant mission, our engineers and scientists getting a good look at what industry has on the shelf, and then putting all that together in an operationally relevant environment with this final event on August 28th.
So for your industry partners, the regional partners and even beyond, southern New England, they're not necessarily thinking about undersea warfare. They're thinking of other things, and they have technology and they're, looking to make a profit and so on. So you were able to kind of reframe it as critical infrastructure protection, which could relate to any number of things that are beyond the Navy. And I know that at one point, we talked about wind farms and cables and, how do we get our internet? How do you protect those? How do you protect undersea cables? And so for companies who maybe weren't originally thinking about their technologies fitting into an undersea battle space, this event sort of gives them an opportunity to kind of look at what they're doing from another perspective. So how were you able to kind of combine industry with Newport expertise?
Well, it is a matter of communicating in a way that industry understands. And like you said, we don't say seabed warfare anywhere in this prize challenge or any of the public-facing aspects of BlueTIDE. We call it critical infrastructure protection. And many folks in industry know and understand that very well. What they don't see is how it overlays with, seabed warfare and how we think of critical infrastructure protection, both from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. So really, it was a matter of getting our subject matter experts to have some face-to-face interaction with these companies, which was very much part of the down select process as we went out and advertised this to industry at large. We did it in a way that addressed critical infrastructure protection, and then we got our subject matter experts who have the understanding of the technologies. They can see, without ever saying seabed warfare, our experts can see very much where these commercial applications might have dual use or national security kind of applications as well.
So how many applicants did you originally have, and how many did you down select to? And what types of technologies are you looking to demonstrate?
Sure. So initially, when we put the call out, they advertised the prize challenge, we had 61 companies apply. From that 61 companies, we did a paper screening. So an application consisted of a white paper, a very short 5-page white paper, and an application form that just gave high-level description of who the company is, where they are, what their technology is, what their TRL, technology readiness level is. So we did a down select there. We had our Code 60 mission engineering folks, teams of our folks, go through those applications and white papers and make an initial down select just based on a rubric criterion that included the relevance of the technology to our seabed warfare mission vignette, TRL of the technology, and similar type of criteria. So we went from 61 applicants down to about 40 applicants right there off the bat. And then of those 40, we went through 4 hybrid demonstrations where companies could either show up in person or just dial in via Teams and provide a 15-minute brief on their company, whatever they had off the shelf, a PowerPoint brief or some video or some results from previous tests. But each of those 40 companies had an opportunity to present about their technology and how it could be relevant to the mission vignette that we shared with them. So of those 40 companies, there was a down select to 21 companies who were invited to participate in the August 28th final experiment here at Newark. Of those 21 companies, we've had a little bit of fallout. So at this point, we have 16 companies that we're planning to have join us on August 28th. Plenty. And the technologies range, as I said, we took our vignette and we binned into 4 broad technology buckets, not perfect, discrete technology buckets, but close enough. So we have vehicles, we have comms, resilient comms, we have high-resolution undersea imaging, and we have sensors of all sorts, optical, acoustic, electromagnetic sensors.
Okay, so are scientists and engineers who may be working in any of those 4 areas, and that would include a wide swath of the scientists and engineers here at Division Newport, how can they get involved? How can they see what these new technologies are?
Sure. So some of our engineers have already gotten involved. So those hybrid down select events that happened over the course of April and May, we had some of our engineers who have particular subject matter expertise in those 4 technology bins. They were actually our evaluators. They listened to the presentations, read the white papers, and helped make those down select decisions that arrived at that 21 companies to participate in the final event. So some of our engineers have already been involved and continue to be involved. Our Code 60 engineers were involved right up front in defining the mission vignette, taking that seabed warfare collection of priority areas and turning it into a single vignette that we used as the basis for this prize challenge. So that was how already we've had a lot of our technical folks involved. Coming up to the August 28th event, we have a number of our technical departments who have SMEs who will be serving as evaluators as well. There'll be a group of evaluators using a rubric to score the companies and their performance on Mission Day on August 28th, and that scoring will contribute to the Prize Challenge Awards. We have a $200,000 prize that we can divvy up a number of different ways to provide awards to the top scoring companies. So we'll have some of our SMEs serving as evaluators for the Prize Challenge Award. Then we'll have some other SMEs serving as observers, really watching and interacting with the companies and asking lots of questions about their technologies with the idea of we'd like to provide these companies really value-add feedback on their technology and how it works, its strengths, maybe some of the gaps, some of the areas that maybe companies can think about and work on and work into their development pipeline. So we have a number of SMEs already involved and ready to be evaluators on mission execution day on the 28th of August. Other engineers and scientists, like you said, there are very few engineers on this campus that aren't involved in some way with any of these 4 technology bins or with seabed warfare or some of the underlying focus areas in seabed warfare. So I would encourage any of our engineers and scientists who are interested in getting involved or coming as observers on the 28th of August to get in touch with me. Email me, call me, text me, do whatever you need to do. But with the idea that coming to participate in BlueTIDE is very much about learning about those companies' technologies, asking lots of probing questions. How does it work? How does it interface with other technologies? How have you integrated with, a vehicle and a certain sensor? What have you been able to do? What does your technology do? It's not an opportunity for us to talk about the work we do at Newark Newport. It's very much an opportunity for us to learn about what industry is doing, what's cutting edge. And the goal of these events, as with all of TechBridge type of events, is setting up useful interactions between us here in the warfare centers and industry so we can understand each other better. Industry needs to understand where the Navy's priorities and problems and challenges are from a technology standpoint. And then our engineers need to have insight into what is cutting edge, what is available commercially out in industry, and what's in the development pipeline. So it should be this very productive cycle of discussion, but very much about learning about these companies, with the idea being, what comes next? After August 28th, how might you want to interact with that company? How might you want to get a hold of that company's technology, actually buy or lease a piece of equipment or sign a CRADA and work with this company further to explore how you might continue the discussion? But very much the idea of BlueTIDE is not to come and passively watch, but to be involved and critically looking at these companies' technologies and asking questions and learning more, with the idea of what comes next, what comes after August 28th, and working with these companies or collections of companies.
Right. What partnership opportunities might there be?
100%.
So this isn't your first event of this nature. What success stories have you had? Just one example for listeners. Like, what's a success story you've had from exactly what you're talking about? One of our engineers or scientists going and kind of, meeting engineers from industry and learning about technology. Like, what are some success stories that came out of previous events?
Sure. So let's go back to the 2023 BlueTIDE. So that was the first demo day BlueTIDE event that I was responsible for as a newly minted TechBridge director here in the CTO's office. So 2023 BlueTIDE, we had 10 companies that set up tables down at the waterfront. And it was a little bit of a show and tell. I think one or two may have dropped something in the water just for a very simple pre-canned demo. And it was a science fair. It was a little bit of a trade show, and that was that. And we learned a few things about that and learned what value it added and where it also fell short. So 2024, we said, okay, rather than having a somewhat varied group of companies, let's throw a problem set to industry and invite industry who have relevant and mature technologies to come and participate. In that case, we called it cross-domain mission management. So it was a combination of comms and sensors and vehicles, with this idea being, let's focus on getting data from place to place to place in an operational theater. So we had a number of companies come and join us, and great success story out of that event is we had 4 companies who had investors, venture capital firms, join us, observe, and express interest in investing in these companies. So great win for the companies. That's all well and good. On the interior or internal side of things with Newark, we had 4 of our engineers who saw technology that was very interesting and relevant to the work they were doing, and they were able to procure that technology. So an acoustic modem, some other types of vehicles, some, interestingly enough, some connectors that were kind of unusual that some of our engineers saw and said, we'd really like to get a hold of a few of those. So what TechBridge, going through this TechBridge process, does, because there's a down select, there's a public nature to the announcement of these events, it checks the boxes for competition, it checks the boxes for public announcement. And so when we get to the end of one of these events, the coast is clear for us to do some procurement of hardware that might have been involved in one of these events. So we've had some good successes, to say nothing of last year's BlueTIDE event. We had a number of other warfare centers. We had program offices. We had folks from DARPA. We had folks from DIU. So a lot of other interested Navy and DoD partners are able to come, join us, and then they take off with whatever their point of interest is with any of these companies. So again, it's a great win for industry. It's a one-day event where they get a lot of good exposure and a lot of good what's next, signing CRADAs, having equipment purchased. So a lot of good success stories have come out. And we're hoping this year will be just as, if not more so, successful.
Excellent. I hope it is even more successful than last year. So what's next for Julie is maybe you could come back on Tangents and tell us how it went.
100%.
Okay.
Happy to.
All right. Well, best of luck with the event.
Thank you.
And I'll see you on the next episode of Tangents.
Sounds good. Fingers crossed for good weather.
Tangents.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tangents. You can find all Tangents episodes on the wiki, #Tangents, and on the Strategic Planning Office SharePoint site. Click the Tangents icon on New Portal.